another tuition video. So for this one we're going to be going over the distribution schematic, and essentially we're just going to be going through it the same way we went through obviously the accumulation schematic, and the same basically kind of layout. So essentially what happens is we come into the from the markup with high demand, and demand is converted through the schematic into supply. And obviously how that happens is through the cause, which is obviously the multiple manipulations you get, and how price goes from the weak hands to the strong hands. And I'm basically going to go through that in detail, so this is going to be a good video. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this. So essentially what happens is we have a preliminary supply right here, and literally just like the accumulation schematic, what this is where most buyers are happy to unload some of their positions and take their profits, which cause some sort of bounce, as you see here, as pressure is relieved from the markets. And then what we have is a buying climax, which again should be represented through somewhat high volume. And the buying climax usually comes, is after the preliminary supply, and it's basically where the volume peaks, and the majority of traders or large institutions at this point are happy to take their profits. And because heavy retail are buying, it allows the larger players to basically take their profits without causing such a massive shift in price. So then basically there's high buying activity, but there's very small movement, and that's basically expressed through volume and expressed through the buying climax. Something to note, that if that bullish volume needs to be highest here, because if it's highest at, like, for example, this point, then it could somewhat show stability in this uptrend. Okay, and then again, because the majority of traders and large institutions are happy to take their profits here, we have an automatic rally to the downside. And it basically how do I say this, larger players basically have relieved a lot of pressure from the markets, and due to a lot of buying pressure diminishing, and there's basically an absence of buying, the market just basically has a little fall. Okay, and then we go into the secondary test, where again, just like the accumulation schematic, price revisits the buying climax, and it tests the supply and demand levels. And if there is a top to be made, the supply must outweigh the demand, which then causes price to drop. So remember, if supply is greater, price drops, which it does here, and it goes into the signs of weakness. The sign of weakness, remember this, the SOW has to be a break of structure. It can't be no corporation. It has to be a solid break of structure with candle closures below, preferably the automatic rally, just to show that manipulation occurring. Okay, and then after that we basically have up thrust action, and that's basically price literally just shifting back upwards, taking out these levels of liquidity, and giving large investors an optimal point of entry for the short positions, and then they literally just push price to the downside. And then this is where there's very low volume, and then after this you kind of want to see supported bearish volume, just to indicate that this markdown is now supported through volume. But yeah, that's basically all of the details of the distribution schematic and what these points basically represent. The upthrust is basically just again, the market just pushing up, taking out these levels of liquidity. The UTAD is basically the same, taking out this level of liquidity. And I'm going to go to a real chart now, and I'm just going to show you how that basically plays out now here. Okay, so this is Euro USD. This is back in December last year. This is actually on the 4-hour, which just goes to show this can literally play out on any time frame. And I'm literally just going to go through it now. So we had a where is it, selling climax here. Sorry, I made a mistake here. This is meant to be SC, selling climax, not a buying climax. So we have a selling climax here, and right before that we had our preliminary supply, PS. PS. And this is where obviously traders were happy to take their positions, which caused a little bounce in price as pressure was relieved in the market. And then we came up, and then it was obviously the selling climax is obviously expressed through the highest volume bar in relation to everything on the left. And then after the selling climax, what happens? Literally automatic rally to the downside. So here, AR, and you can literally see the strength in which sellers, the pressure was relieved from the market. And then what we have after that is the secondary test, ST. Now this obviously tests the supply and demand levels in this region, and should supply outweigh demand, what actually happens is we have a fall and we have our sign of weakness, and this is obviously in phase B. And if you look here, let me just mark this out again, AR, you can see here that this is a nice clear break of structure. It wasn't just a little corporate no co-op like this. We have nice strong break with candle closures below. Now this is something to note, sometimes you don't get the up thrust and the UTAD, so you don't get the up thrust action and the UTAD. Sometimes you just price just comes up straight and you have some up thrust action, and that's okay. So let me just mark that out now as well. We have the UTAD here. Let's make that capitals, UTAD, and after that we literally have some last points of supply here, OPSY, and again here. Okay, now let's look at volume. From this low here to this low here, we had decrease in price action. We made a lower low, but what did price do? Price showed us literally throughout this entire region here, it showed diminishing bearish volume. So we had diminishing bearish volume, indicating instability. Okay, and let's look at price action during this region here. I mean, to be honest, this isn't exactly ideal. We did have some form of high volume, but that's okay. What's important to kind of take notice of is this here. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake here. You're kind of meant to take notice of the buying price action. That's it. So from, oh yeah, this was a mistake, my bad. So from here to here, we had price making obviously high highs, and you can even take it to like here, and you can see that from here to even this candle here. So we can literally put this back here. We had diminishing bullish, sorry, that's bullish volume. Bullish volume. Hope that makes sense. If anyone, caught out that mistake, that's good. So we had diminishing bullish volume. So price made a higher high, but bullish volume was decreasing, indicating instability. Okay, now let's look at what price actually did as we made this low here. Okay, we had bearish volume increase. Okay, and what does that show us? It shows stability in this price leg. So we had increasing bearish volume indicating stability, and this is literally just a shift, right? You can see the shift from unstable price action to stable price action, and you can see basically how we have the markup. We come in with demand, it shifts into the schematic, and then we come out with supply. Okay, now an important thing to take into consideration is you kind of want to wait for the signs of weakness to break, or any other level of structure after the UTAD to give you the indication to start looking for a sell position. Okay, now I'm just going to go through, I didn't do this on the accumulation video, but I'm just going to go through the different manipulation that happens in this schematic. Okay, what do we have here? Look at this. Yeah, it came up, down, up, down, up, and down. This is your classic head and shoulders setup, right? And they actually trade when the neckline breaks. So they take a sell position right here. And let's just say the stop loss is above that shoulder, so and so. Look at what happens. They go into a bit of profit, price literally vaults back up and takes them out. Okay, so that's one kind of way that price goes from weak hands to strong hands. Okay, let's look at all the liquidity that's taken. We had this high taken here. It's liquidity. Okay, we literally had this high taken here, along with obviously this high here. We had where is it? So we had this low taken here. So if people decided to buy off of this level here, so usually your let me delete that. Usually your trader would kind of uh, have a fear of missing out on, potentially just kind of climbing up further now. So what they do is they fib up this move here and they wait for a perfect 618 tap like they got here and they'd buy it. Stop loss like what, 30 pips? Yep, right there. And literally again, it gives them just a little bit of hope and it literally just vaults back against them. And that's literally how they're all taken out. Like you can literally start to look at this and be like, oh wait, I can see the manipulation here. I can see that they've been taken out here. I can see how, you know, someone could have potentially seen this as a buy. Like, look, even if we don't consider that, right? Look here, inefficiency fill. So even if it isn't, your normal retail trader, it could have been you. You could have seen that as a perfect 50% taken that long, and then it just went back against you, and you're like, well, Daban, your whole inefficiency fill strategy isn't working. That's because you need to look at the bigger picture. Look how volume is working in conjunction with price action. Okay, and yeah, that's basically it. I mean, the last thing I kind of wanted to touch upon was this. You can, after the UTAD, you can look for the entry upon the LPS buys. So obviously this came up, filled a bit of that inefficiency in. That's completely fine. You can do that. But what I'd recommend is wait for the sign of weakness to break, okay? Because what that's basically going to do is give you that clear indication to the downside, and you can basically just comfortably and confidently start looking for your sell positions. Now, ideally in this scenario, what we had here was a uh, inefficiency fill, which gave us this sponsored candle here, right? Which was then mitigated by this wick over here. Okay, so now this wick here, ideally somewhere within this wick would have been your entry, and you have a duo because you have an inefficiency fill there as well. So again, price would have came up, bang, tapped your 50%, and then this just would have fell like so. Literally beautiful, perfect entry, and this went what, 200 at its highest, sorry, lowest, 300 pips in profit without a single retracement. You can hold this confidently and comfortably because you know why price has gone your way. You can see the shift from demand into supply. You can see the pure manipulation behind price action. So yeah, I hope that made sense. This is basically, you know, the one of the nicest schematics to see play out. It's actually really um, it's really just like an honor in a way to see these schematics play out and to combine it with like what you've learned with like no corporation, with what you've learned with like the way retail traders are manipulated, the way you can basically combine this with like the entry strategies, like the inefficiency fields, the mitigations, and just when it all just comes together, it's just perfect kind of like way to trade. So yeah, I hope that made sense to you guys. If you got any questions, feel free to ask me, and on to the next.